Alright, in this video we are going to look at how can we use convention over code to simplify event handling within the component. It's going to make our code a lot better. It scales really well. It uses less memory. It basically just wins on every front. So here I have a custom web component. It has two buttons on it, button 1 and button 2, and when I click on button 1 it must update this dose value, and the same with button 2. So button 1 is got a click event handler for foo, and button 2 has a click event handler for bar. So when I click on button 1, foo is going to call and it's going to say take this element and set its text content to hello, and the bar will do the same, except it'll change it to bar. So when I go to this component and I click on foo and bar, foo and bar. Okay, so what's the problem here? Well, there's a lot to clean up. There's a lot of event handlers running around. And for those event handlers, I have to have functional handlers that bind to this function, and this probably needs to be null. So let's just quickly do that. So I gotta remove it, and I gotta null it, and I gotta remove it, and I gotta null it, and it's not great. Well, how can I make this better? Well, first of all, let's get rid of that, and then we get rid of that. So what we can do now is we can say, well, since we're working with this component, and I potentially have several items that I want to be able to click on and perform some action on, let's just create one event that deals with everything. So I can say, okay, well, this dot clicked handler equals this dot clicked dot bind this. Okay, so we don't have this function yet, so let's go and create it. And we have the event that comes through. Great, so now we have the handler, and we can say this dot add event listener click this dot click handler. So now I have a click handler for my click event. So when I click on anything within the web component, it's going to come back here, and I can use the event.target to see what is the thing that I clicked on. So we can say here for now console.log event.target. So target will be the element that was clicked on. Okay, so now let's open up our DevTools quickly. I click on the button and it shows me button 1, and if I click on the second button it tells me button 2. So if I go here, that's exactly what we want. But now I'm sitting with a problem. If I want to say, okay, well, if I'm clicking on button 1 then call foo, else if I click on button 2 then call bar, yeah, okay, we can do that, but when I add a new button I have to make that if in there as well, and so very easily this if statement can just grow and grow and grow and grow, and all of the gains that I thought I had just kind of goes out with the wind. So we don't want to use an if statement to check what the button is that I clicked and then navigate it. What we're going to do is we're going to use a convention. So this is a bit of a trick. Over here, if I can just group this thing properly, over here I have my HTML, here I have my JavaScript. So what I'm going to do now is say, okay, here I have a foo function, so I'm going to say data-action equals foo, and then I can go to button 2 and say data-action equals bar. So now I know that when I click on this button I can check the action property on the dataset. So we can say if event.target.dataset.action is not equal to null, so in other words, has this been set, then I want to call a function on this class. I want to say this event.target.dataset.action And I'm going to pass on the event, and since they're all async, I will await it over here. So we're going to check how this works out now. What makes this nice is that one, I only have one click event handler. Two, even if I add another button, it's not going to add anything to this code. This is as much code as you're ever going to need for this particular scenario. So let's just go and make sure that this works first. So there's my hello and bar. Probably should make this foo. But either way, foo and bar. So let's go and debug this quickly. I'm going to put up my breakpoint here. I'm going to click on the button. It says event.target.dataset.action is foo. So we know it is foo. Therefore, if I go and do this, you'll see that it points to the foo function. So the square brackets is a way on how I can read a property on any object. It's like a dictionary, right? And so the convention is that the function name equals the value that I put in the data dash attribute. And that's it. That's the convention. So if I now have a function called hello, and on this function I want to do the same thing, but I want to say hello world. Alright, how can I go and set myself up a button that calls that? Well, quite easily. I go and copy my button. Let's give it a different ID. We don't really need the IDs in this case, but for testability, if I write test, that might still be useful, so we'll leave it in there. But my function name that I want to call is hello, so we'll just put that in there. And we'll say this is my hello, this is my bar, this is my foo. Now you'll notice I haven't actually done anything there. I've just added my button, set the data dash attribute, added my function. Let's go back to the browser and refresh it. So foo, bar, hello world. Now let's compare what it was versus what it is now. So here's a backup of what we used to have, and this was just for 2 buttons, right? Let me just copy and paste this to pretend like I'm adding a 3rd item. So I'm going to duplicate that, and then I'm going to go and duplicate that. It's just oodles and oodles and oodles of code that I all of a sudden have to maintain. It's memory I'm consuming for click events that I need to remember to take out and clean up. Now all I need to go and do is just go and clean this one event up. So I'm going to add my remove event listener on there. And then I'm just going to take this guy and just say you're equal to null. Much cleaner, much more efficient on your memory usage, much more scalable, takes less time to implement. So a good convention reduces the amount of code you write significantly. So this principle about using convention over code is super important to get under your belt early, because it has applications like you cannot believe. Alright, so I think I've sold you on the idea of convention over code and why it's a good idea. Enjoy the rest of your day.